The wrong door. Jack Morgan's hands trembled slightly as he stepped off the elevator on the 15th floor of Hartwell Tower. The marble beneath his worn boots gleamed like mirrors, and every surface seemed to whisper that he didn't belong here. But the supply room assignment was clear, or at least, he thought it was. Room 1402. He squinted at the faded ink on his work order, then at the pristine hallway stretching before him. Corporate logos and motivational quotes lined the walls, the kind of polished perfection that made his second-hand shirt feel even more threadbare. He'd taken this janitorial job out of desperation, not ambition. When you're a single father with a 10-year-old daughter who needs asthma medication, pride becomes a luxury you can't afford. The health benefits alone were worth swallowing whatever dignity he had left. Finding a door slightly ajar, Jack knocked softly and pushed it open. "Excuse me, is this?" The words died in his throat. This wasn't a supply room. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, and the office smelled of lavender and expensive leather. At the far end, silhouetted against the glass, stood a woman with her back to him. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat chignon, and her posture suggested someone accustomed to carrying the weight of important decisions. "Sorry," Jack stammered, already backing toward the door. "I think I've got the wrong room." The woman turned slowly, and her eyes, sharp yet somehow tired, locked onto his. Instead of the anger or dismissal he expected, her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Stay with me," she said simply. Jack froze, his hand still on the door handle. What?" "I said stay with me." She stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the hardwood. "You're in the wrong place, but maybe it's the right time." He should have left. Should have apologized and hurried back to the supply closet where he belonged. Instead, he found himself sitting across from her massive desk, his hands folded over his knees the way his daughter Lily did when she was nervous. "I'm Evelyn Hart," she said, and Jack's breath caught. Everyone knew that name, the CEO who turned Hartwell Corporation into a Fortune 500 company, the woman who graced magazine covers and commanded boardrooms. "Miss Hart, I apologize," he managed. "I didn't mean to barge in." "But you did," she interrupted, leaning back in her chair. "And now I'm curious." There was something in her voice that surprised him. Not the cold authority he'd expected, but a kind of weary gentleness, as if she'd been standing alone in a crowded room for too long. "So, Jack, is it?" When he nodded, she continued. "Tell me about yourself. Do you have children?" The question caught him off guard. "Yes. One. My daughter Lily, she's 10. 10. Evelyn's expression softened, and something wistful entered her voice. "That's a wonderful age." Jack smiled despite his confusion. "She thinks so. Says she's halfway to being grown up, and I better enjoy the snuggle years while I can." For a moment, Evelyn's professional mask slipped entirely. "You're lucky, Jack." Lucky. The word felt foreign to a man who'd lost his wife to cancer, his business to debt, and his house to foreclosure. But Lily, yes, Lily was his one piece of undeniable luck. "You're not like the people who usually sit in that chair," Evelyn said quietly. "I don't imagine I am." She leaned forward, her hands clasped on the desk. "You probably won't believe me, Jack, but I didn't bring you in here to intimidate you. I just..." She paused, searching for words. "I needed to talk to someone who doesn't want anything from me." The honesty in her voice cut through all pretense. Here was one of the most powerful women in the city, admitting to a janitor that she was lonely. "I don't know what this is," Jack said finally. "But I know it's not something I expected when I woke up this morning." Evelyn laughed, not the polished sound he might have expected, but something genuine and unguarded. "That makes two of us." She stood and walked to the window, wrapping her arms around herself. "Jack, I have a meeting in 10 minutes with people who will spend 45 minutes saying nothing and expect me to call it leadership. But this conversation, feels more real than anything I've experienced in months. Jack rose as well, unsure if he was being dismissed. I guess I should get back to work. One more thing, she said as he reached the door. I hope you come back tomorrow. Even if it's just to say good morning. Jack paused, studying her face bathed in the golden light from the window. Behind all that success and power, he saw something he recognized, the same quiet determination that got him up every morning to face another day. Good morning, Miss Hart, he said with a slight smile, and stepped out. As the door clicked shut behind him, Evelyn Hart stood alone in her corner office, releasing a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. For the first time in years, she found herself looking forward to tomorrow. The broken bookshelf. Jack barely slept that night. He replayed the conversation with Evelyn Hart over and over, wondering if it had really happened or if desperation had finally made him lose his mind. By morning, he'd almost convinced himself it was a dream, until the intercom crackled to life at 11 a.m. Jack Morgan, report to the 15th floor immediately. His supervisor, Mike, raised an eyebrow. What did you do on your first day, Morgan? Break something expensive? Jack wished it were that simple. The elevator ride felt eternal. When the doors opened, Evelyn was waiting just beyond the reception desk, hands tucked into the pockets of a navy suit. She looked composed, but Jack was beginning to understand that appearances could be deceiving with her. Good morning, she said, her voice lighter than yesterday. Ma'am. He nodded, still uncertain about the protocol for whatever this was. I wasn't sure if I'd see you again, she admitted as they walked toward her office. I wasn't sure you'd call. Once inside, she gestured toward a bookshelf near the window. You see that? It's wobbly. I think the back panel's coming loose. Jack crouched down to inspect it, running his fingers along the frame. Looks like the nails are stripped. I'll need to reinforce it with some brackets. Good. Take your time. He glanced up at her. Do you really want me to fix it, or are we doing that thing again where I'm fixing something else entirely? Her lips twitched with what might have been amusement. Maybe a bit of both. As Jack removed tools from his belt, Evelyn walked to her desk and opened a drawer. She pulled out a small black box, held it for a long moment, then opened the lid. Inside lay a simple gold wedding band. Jack caught sight of it in the window's reflection, and his hands paused. You were married, he said softly, not a question. I was. She closed the box gently, placing it on her desk. His name was Daniel. He died 3 years ago. Jack continued working, letting the silence breathe. He knew grief well enough to understand it didn't always want to be spoken over. I'm sorry, he said finally. Evelyn sat in the chair opposite her desk, crossing her legs. He was the only person who ever saw me clearly, before the titles, before the boardrooms. He used to say I was like a snow globe, beautiful on the outside, but all the good stuff hidden behind glass. Jack tightened a bracket carefully. He sounds like someone worth remembering. He was. I think that's why I can't let go. She paused. I didn't bring you up here to unload all this. I'm just tired of talking to people who pretend they don't notice I'm breaking. Jack sat back on his heels, meeting her eyes. You don't seem broken. Then you're not looking closely enough. Maybe I am. But I also know what it looks like to keep going when the world's moved on without you. Something shifted in Evelyn's expression. Tell me about her, your daughter. Jack's face brightened. Lily's 10 going on 30. Loves puzzles, hates peas, wants a dog. Thinks I'm a superhero even when I can't afford ice cream. And you're raising her alone. Since her mom passed. Cancer. Lily was 6. His throat tightened. We lost our house 6 months later. Been trying to rebuild ever since. And yet you smile when you talk about her. Jack shrugged. Lily deserves a dad who believes in better days. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. She stood and walked to the window, leaning against the frame. Sunlight caught in her hair, turning it the color of burnished gold. "I've forgotten how to believe in better days," she whispered. Jack rose slowly, dusting off his knees. "Maybe you just need someone to remind you." When she turned, he saw her defenses lower, not in weakness, but in willingness. "I don't know what this is, Jack. Us. These conversations. But I know it's the first time in a long while I've felt seen." Jack chose his words carefully. "Maybe it doesn't have to be anything yet. Maybe it's just two people figuring things out one bookshelf at a time." Evelyn laughed, truly laughed, and the sound surprised them both. "God, you're strange. Strange has been working okay for me so far." She studied him for a moment longer, then crossed the room and extended her hand. "Come by again tomorrow, Jack." He hesitated only briefly before shaking it, her grip firm and warm. "Good morning, Miss Hart," he said, echoing yesterday's goodbye. As he left, Evelyn remained by the window, watching his reflection disappear in the elevator doors. The bookshelf was fixed, but something else, something she'd thought permanently broken, was starting to mend. The lunch that changed everything. By the third week, their morning conversations had become routine. Jack would arrive at Evelyn's office with a maintenance task, sometimes real, sometimes fabricated, and they would talk. About Daniel and Carrie, about 10-year-old dreams and corporate loneliness, about the weight of responsibility and the fear of failing the people who depended on you. Today felt different. When Jack knocked, Evelyn called out, "Come in," but she wasn't at her usual spot by the window. Instead, she sat at a small table near her bookshelf, 2 sandwiches and coffee cups arranged on what looked like her finest china. "I thought we might try something new," she said, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. Jack hesitated. "Miss Hart, I don't think." "Evelyn," she corrected. "And before you say you can't eat lunch with the CEO, remember that 3 weeks ago you couldn't have a conversation with her either." She had a point. Jack sat down, acutely aware of his work clothes against the elegant setting. The sandwich was some gourmet creation with ingredients he couldn't pronounce, but it tasted better than anything he'd eaten in months. "My assistant thinks I've lost my mind," Evelyn said, cutting her sandwich into precise triangles. "She keeps asking why I need so much maintenance work done." "What do you tell her?" "That I'm a very particular boss with very high standards." Evelyn smiled. "Which isn't entirely untrue." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the city sprawling below them through the massive windows. Jack found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't since Carrie died. Here, in this impossible situation, he felt like himself again, not just Lily's father or the man trying to keep his head above water, but Jack Morgan, the person. "Can I ask you something?" Evelyn said suddenly. "Sure. What did you want to be when you grew up?" Jack laughed, caught off guard. "That's a hell of a question to ask a janitor." "I'm not asking a janitor. I'm asking Jack." He set down his coffee, considering. "I wanted to build things. Had my own carpentry business for a while, custom furniture, home renovations. I was good at it too." His voice grew quieter. "But when Carrie got sick, the medical bills. I had to liquidate everything. Sold my tools, my truck, even my dad's workbench." "Do you miss it?" "Every day. There's something about creating something with your hands, watching it take shape. Making something beautiful and lasting." He gestured around the office. "Not that there's anything wrong with cleaning up after people who make things." Evelyn's expression had grown thoughtful. "What if I told you I might have a proposition for you?" Jack's stomach tightened. "What kind of proposition?" "Hartwell Corporation owns several properties that need renovation. Office buildings, a small hotel, some residential spaces we're converting. We typically contract the work out, but..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "What if we didn't this time?" "I don't understand." I mean, what if we hired someone to oversee the projects? Someone who understood both the business side and the craft. Someone who could manage crews, ensure quality, keep costs reasonable. She met his eyes. Someone I trust. Jack stared at her. Evelyn, you barely know me. I know you show up. I know you work hard. I know you care about doing things right. She leaned forward. And I know you understand what it means to build something worth keeping. The offer hung in the air between them, too good to be real. Jack's mind raced through the implications: better pay, work he loved, a chance to use his skills again. But also the complications, the questions people would ask, the assumption that would be made about him and Evelyn. I need to think about it, he said finally. Of course. But Jack. She reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. Sometimes the best opportunities come disguised as the wrong door. That evening, Jack sat on his apartment's fire escape while Lily did homework inside. The city lights twinkled below, and he thought about second chances, about doors that opened when you least expected them. His phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn: "Whatever you decide, thank you for the last 3 weeks. They've meant more than you know." He typed back, "Thank you for seeing something in me I'd forgotten was there." Through the window, he could see Lily at the kitchen table, tongue poking out in concentration as she worked on math problems. She deserved stability, opportunities, a father who could give her more than just love and determination. Maybe it was time to stop playing it safe. Maybe it was time to believe in better days. The next morning, Jack knocked on Evelyn's door with his answer. "Building something new." "Yes," Jack said the moment Evelyn opened her office door. She didn't need to ask what he meant. Her smile was radiant, transforming her face in a way that made Jack understand why Daniel had fallen in love with her. "Yes," she repeated, as if testing the word. "Good. We start Monday." The transition wasn't seamless. There were raised eyebrows from Evelyn's executive team, whispered conversations that stopped when Jack walked by, and more than one person who made it clear they thought he was in over his head. But Evelyn had positioned the promotion carefully. Jack's experience and work ethic spoke for themselves, and the first renovation project was small enough to prove himself without catastrophic risk. The Meridian building was a 1920s office structure that Hartwell had acquired for conversion into upscale condominiums. Jack spent his first week walking every floor, taking measurements, making notes, seeing possibilities where others saw problems. "You look like you belong there," Evelyn said one evening. She'd started visiting the work sites, officially to check on progress, but Jack suspected she simply enjoyed seeing him in his element. "It feels good," he admitted, running his hand along a section of original crown molding. "Really good." They stood in what would become the penthouse unit, windows facing west toward the sunset. The space was gutted but full of potential: high ceilings, good bones, beautiful light. "Lily came by after school today," Jack said. "First time she's seen me work with tools since before her mom died." "What did she think?" "She said I looked happy." He turned to face Evelyn. "I am happy. Happier than I've been in years." Something had shifted between them in recent weeks. The careful boundaries they'd maintained were blurring, replaced by something deeper and more complicated. Jack was no longer just the janitor who'd wandered into the wrong room, and Evelyn was no longer just the untouchable CEO. They were becoming something neither had planned for. "Jack," Evelyn said softly, and he heard the change in her voice immediately. "I know," he said. "I feel it too." She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume, see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. "This is complicated. Everything worthwhile is complicated. People will talk. People are already talking." She reached up and touched his face, her fingers gentle against his cheek. "I haven't felt this way since Daniel died. I wasn't sure I could feel this way again." Jack covered her hand with his. "Carrie used to say that love isn't something you find, it's something you build, one day at a time, one choice at a time." Is that what we're doing? Building something? I'd like to think so. The kiss was inevitable, gentle at first, then deeper as weeks of unspoken feelings found their voice. When they finally separated, Evelyn rested her forehead against his. I want to meet her, she said. Lily. Jack's heart skipped. Are you sure? I'm sure I want to know all of you. That includes the most important person in your world. The meeting happened the following Saturday at the park near Jack's apartment. Lily was initially shy, but Evelyn had brought a wooden puzzle, intricate enough to be challenging, beautiful enough to impress a 10-year-old who appreciated craftsmanship. Dad says you're really smart, Lily said as they worked on the puzzle together. Like, run a whole company smart. Your dad's pretty smart too, Evelyn replied. Smart enough to know what matters most. Jack watched them from a nearby bench, his heart swelling as he saw two of the most important people in his life beginning to connect. When Lily laughed at something Evelyn said, the sound bright and genuine, he felt a piece of his world click into place. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Jack and Evelyn sat on his fire escape, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the city lights twinkle below. She's wonderful, Evelyn said. I can see why you'd move mountains for her. She likes you. That's not always easy to earn. Evelyn was quiet for a moment, then said, I never thought I'd have this. After Daniel died, I assumed that part of my life was over. And now? She turned to look at him, her eyes reflecting the streetlights below. Now I think maybe the story isn't over. Maybe it's just starting a new chapter. Jack kissed her again, tasting wine and possibilities on her lips. In the distance, the city hummed with life and promise, and for the first time in years, the future felt bright with hope. The foundation of forever. 1 year later, Jack stood in the completed penthouse of the Meridian building, adjusting his tie for the third time. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city stretched out below, golden in the late afternoon sun. Dad, you look nervous, Lily observed from her perch on the restored window seat. At 11, she'd grown taller and more perceptive, her dark hair, so much like her mother's, pulled back in a style Evelyn had taught her. I am nervous, Jack admitted. Why? You already know she loves you. Out of the mouths of babes. Jack smiled at his daughter, marveling at how naturally she'd accepted Evelyn into their lives. Sunday morning pancakes had become a tradition, along with help with homework, shopping trips, and quiet conversations about growing up that Jack couldn't navigate alone. Sometimes the most important things make you nervous, he said. The sound of heels on hardwood announced Evelyn's arrival. She appeared in the doorway wearing a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, her hair loose around her shoulders the way Jack loved it. Are you two ready? She asked, but her attention was focused on Jack, taking in his carefully chosen suit and the small velvet box in his hands. We're ready, Lily said, jumping down from the window seat. I get to go first, remember? They'd planned this moment carefully. The penthouse held special meaning. It was where Jack had found his footing again, where he and Evelyn had shared their first kiss, where they'd talked about building something lasting. It seemed only fitting that it should be where they made their next beginning official. Lily stepped forward, suddenly solemn despite her excitement. Evelyn, she said, her voice clear and strong, will you be my mom? Evelyn's composure cracked immediately. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she knelt to Lily's level, pulling her into a fierce hug. Yes, she whispered. Yes, sweetheart. Nothing would make me happier. Jack watched them embrace, these two people who'd helped him remember that love multiplies rather than divides, that opening your heart to more doesn't diminish what came before. Carrie would have loved Evelyn, he was certain of that. She would have been happy that Lily was gaining another person to love her, another woman to guide her through the complexities of growing up. When Evelyn and Lily separated, both wiping their eyes and laughing through their tears, Jack stepped forward. My turn, he said, dropping to one knee. The ring wasn't extravagant, they'd chosen it together, a simple solitaire that caught the light beautifully. But the words that mattered had been in his heart for months. Evelyn Hart, he began, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him, you saw something in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You gave me back my purpose, my hope, my belief in tomorrow. You've loved my daughter like she was your own, and you've taught me that second chances aren't just possible, they're miracles waiting to happen. Evelyn's tears had started again, but she was smiling through them. I love your strength and your vulnerability, your brilliant mind and your generous heart. I love how you make Lily laugh and how you make me believe I can build anything, including a life worthy of your love. He held up the ring. Will you marry me? Yes, she said without hesitation. Yes, yes, yes. Jack slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood to kiss her as Lily cheered in the background. When they broke apart, all three of them were crying and laughing and holding each other in the golden light of the penthouse that had become their sanctuary. 6 months later, they were married in the same space, surrounded by friends and family, with the city sprawling below them and the future bright with promise. Jack's business had expanded to 3 ongoing projects, Lily was thriving in her new school, and Evelyn had found a balance between her corporate responsibilities and the family life she'd never dared to dream she could have. As they danced to their first song as husband and wife, Evelyn whispered in Jack's ear, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd found the right door that first day?" Jack spun her gently, then pulled her close. "Every day. And I'm grateful I didn't. Sometimes the wrong door leads you exactly where you need to be." "To love?" she asked. "To home," he corrected, and kissed her as their daughter now, applauded from the edge of the dance floor, her face bright with the joy of a family made not by blood but by choice, not by chance but by the daily decision to build something beautiful together. In the end, Jack had been right about one thing from the very beginning, he was in the business of fixing broken things. He just hadn't realized that sometimes, the most important repairs happen to hearts. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you find someone willing to do the building with you, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of love at a time. The end.